Myrla walked into the tall glass building in Sorvey, holding a thin blue folder against her chest like it could protect her. The floor shined so much it made her slow her steps, afraid her shoes were too loud, afraid she was too much or not enough. She had been invited to this meeting herself, the email still warm in her mind from how many times she read it. Yet her heart beat fast like she was sneaking in. All week she had practiced answers while cooking lentils at night, whispering to herself, smiling at mistakes, laughing softly when she forgot what she planned to say. This meeting felt like a small light after years of being ignored, of working twice as hard, and still being told to wait, still being told maybe later. She believed, quietly, that today could be different. She sat down for a moment and breathed in the smell of clean air and coffee, and she let herself imagine calling her brother in Kintala afterward, laughing, and saying it finally worked. Her hands shook, but she kept them still. She looked around at the moving people and glowing screens and felt something gentle rise in her chest. Not pride yet, just hope, thin but alive. She told herself she belonged here, that she earned this chance, that she did not need to apologize for dreaming. Outside the wide windows, the city moved like it always did, loud and busy and careless. But inside that quiet space, she felt safe, like she had stepped into a new life for just a moment, long enough to believe it could be real. Myrla had barely taken 2 steps toward the chair when the door of a glass office flew open, and a woman rushed out like a sudden storm. Her name was Kama, though nothing about her felt calm. Her heels struck the floor hard, sharp sounds that made every head lift. She did not lower her voice. She did not ask questions. She pointed at Myrla and spoke as if Myrla were not even there, accusing her of sneaking in, of lying about a meeting, of thinking she could sit among people like this. The room changed in a second. Fingers froze over keyboards. Screens were forgotten. A soft laugh slipped out from somewhere and then died in the air. Myrla opened her mouth, holding her folder tighter, trying to explain about the email, the date, the name she was told to ask for. Her voice came out small, swallowed by Kama's words that kept coming, loud and sharp, and full of anger that felt old, like it had been waiting for someone like her. Myrla felt her ears burn. She felt her heart jump and fall at the same time. She wanted to say she worked hard, that she had taken 2 buses from Namur that morning, that she had stayed up late practicing answers while her neighbors laughed and played music outside, but the words stayed stuck. Kama's voice filled the space, saying she did not belong, saying places like this had rules, saying mistakes like Myrla should be stopped early. Someone nearby shook their head slowly. Someone else looked away. Myrla noticed small things because big things were too painful to hold. The hum of the lights, the smell of coffee, the way her hands would not stop shaking no matter how hard she tried. Kama stepped closer, so close Myrla could see the lines around her mouth tighten as she spoke. She said she would call security and make an example of this. She said it loudly, like it was a lesson for everyone watching. Myrla felt something crack inside her chest, not loudly, just enough to hurt. She thought of her mother in Kavia, who always said, "Keep your head high, even when it feels heavy." She thought of laughing with her cousin by the river in Dorma, saying one day life would open a door. Right then, it felt like the door had slammed shut. She did not cry. She refused to cry. She stood still and listened as Kama pulled out her phone, her voice proud and sure, telling someone on the other end that there was a girl who did not belong. The room went quiet in a way that felt worse than shouting. Silence pressed against Myrla's skin. She could feel eyes on her, some curious, some kind, some sharp. She wondered if this was how people disappeared from places like this, not by leaving, but by being pushed so far into shame they faded. Kama talked and talked, nodding as if she was right, until her voice slowed. Her face changed, just a little at first. Her eyebrows pulled together. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. She stopped pacing. The phone stayed at her ear, but the confidence drained away like water through a crack. Myrla noticed it without understanding it yet. Noticed the way Kama's shoulders dropped, the way her free hand trembled. The silence stretched, thick and strange. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else shifted in their chair. Kama said Myrla's name into the phone, careful now, like it was something fragile. She listened longer, then longer still, her face turning pale, her eyes moving back to Myrla with something new in them, something close to fear. Myrla felt shock rise in her chest, warm and cold at the same time, though she did not yet know why. She only knew the room no longer felt against her. It felt like it was holding its breath. Kama lowered the phone slowly, her mouth opening as if to speak, but no words came out right away. The woman who had filled the room with anger now stood small and quiet, and Myrla, still shaking, still holding that thin folder, felt a strange warmth under the hurt. Not joy yet, not relief, just the feeling that something had shifted, that the story she thought was ending might not be over after all. Kama lifted her phone like it was a weapon she had used many times before, her arm steady, her voice even louder now, echoing off the glass walls so no one could miss it. She said she would call security, said it slow and clear, like a warning carved in stone, like a lesson meant to sink into Myrla's bones. A few people laughed, not loudly, not kindly. The kind of laughter that slips out when people are nervous and want to belong to the safer side of the room. Myrla felt her face burn so hot she thought it might light up the screens around her. Her ears rang. Her chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a rope around her heart and pulled just enough to hurt. She stared at the floor because looking up felt impossible, because every second stretched too long. She told herself not to cry, not here, not in front of these people who already decided who she was. She pressed her nails into her palm and focused on breathing, slow in, slow out, the way her aunt in Zerku taught her when fear came like a wave. She thought of the early bus rides from Malira, the cold mornings, the packed seats, the way she always stood to let older people sit. She thought of counting coins on her kitchen table, laughing softly when the numbers almost worked. She told herself she would not beg, that she would leave with her back straight if she had to leave at all. Kama's voice floated above her, sharp and proud, saying security would handle this, saying rules mattered, saying some people needed to learn where they stood. Myrla felt small, but she stayed still, holding her folder like it was proof she existed, like it was the last thing tying her to the girl she believed she could be. When Kama finally pressed the screen and put the phone to her ear, the room went silent, so fast it felt unreal. Even the laughter vanished, leaving behind a thick quiet that pressed against Myrla's skin. Kama spoke fast at first, explaining, accusing, certain of herself. Myrla listened without really hearing, watching the light on the phone glow against Kama's cheek. Seconds passed, then more seconds. Kama stopped pacing. Her voice slowed. She asked a question, then repeated it, softer this time. Myrla felt the shift before she understood it, like the air had changed shape. Kama's face tightened, then loosened, then went pale in a way makeup could not hide. Her free hand dropped to her side. She nodded once, then again, her mouth opening slightly as if she wanted to interrupt, but could not. Myrla's heart began to pound harder, confusion mixing with fear. She wondered if security was on the way, if she would be escorted out past all these eyes, if this moment would follow her forever. She noticed strange details, the hum of the lights, the soft ticking of a clock she had not seen before, the way one man leaned forward, as if trying to hear through silence. Kama said Myrla's name into the phone, careful now, each sound measured. She swallowed. She said yes. She said she understood. When she lowered the phone, her hand shook. For a long moment, she said nothing. The woman who had filled the room with noise now looked like she had lost her voice. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else shifted in their chair. Kama looked at Myrla, really looked this time, not through anger, not through pride, but with something close to fear and something close to regret tangled together. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, then finally said Myrla should wait. Her voice was low, almost gentle, and it sent a strange warmth through Myrla's chest, right alongside the pain that was still there. The room did not feel like it was laughing anymore. It felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something none of them had expected. Myrla stood in that quiet, still shaking, still hurting, but no longer invisible, no longer erased. She did not smile. She did not speak. She simply stood there, breathing, feeling the tears she refused to let fall, feeling a small spark of hope flicker under the weight of everything that had almost crushed her, wondering how a moment meant to shame her had turned into something no one could control. Not even the woman who made the call. Kama froze in the middle of a word, like someone had reached inside her and pulled a string tight. Her mouth stayed open for a second, then slowly closed. The sharp lift of her chin softened, her eyes narrowed, not in anger now, but in confusion, like she was hearing a language she did not expect. She took the phone away from her ear for half a breath, stared at the screen, then lifted it back again. Her voice changed when she spoke. It lost its edge. It lost its pride. It became careful, almost quiet. She asked who was calling. She listened. Her face drained of color so fast it felt unreal, like watching a shadow fall over someone in bright daylight. The room stayed still. No one typed. No one laughed. Even breathing sounded too loud. Kama nodded once, then again, her lips pressed tight. She said yes. She understood, yes, of course. And the way she said it made Myrla's stomach twist. Myrla felt the moment stretching, heavy and strange, like standing at the edge of deep water. She did not know what was happening, only that something was. Kama's shoulders pulled in, smaller now. Her hand trembled as she held the phone. She turned slightly, as if trying to block the room from hearing, but there was nothing left to hide. The name she said next landed like a soft bell in the quiet. Myrla's name, said slowly, carefully, with respect that had not been there before. Myrla felt shock rise in her chest, cold and bright at the same time. She remembered the email again, the plain words, the short subject line, how she almost ignored it because it felt too simple to matter. She remembered the papers she signed months ago after her uncle in Raimku passed away. The ones she did not fully read because grief made her tired and lawyers spoke too fast. She remembered being told it was nothing urgent, nothing big, just something to close. Standing there now, she felt those memories shift, like pieces of a story falling into place long after the ending was supposed to be known. Kama lowered the phone slowly, like it had grown heavy in her hand. For a moment, she could not meet Myrla's eyes. When she finally did, her look was different. It was not kind yet, but it was no longer cruel. It was careful, measured, unsure. She cleared her throat and said the call had not been security. Her voice cracked just enough for people to notice. She said the call was from the executive director of Kavra Holdings. The words moved through the room like a wave, quiet but strong. Myrla felt her heart skip. Kavra Holdings. She had heard the name before, always spoken with distance, with weight. Her uncle used to mention it in passing, usually while shaking his head, usually followed by a small laugh and a change of subject. Kama continued speaking, slower now, explaining that Myrla's name had triggered an alert in their system, one tied to ownership, to control, to power that had been sleeping quietly under layers of paperwork and time. Myrla felt the truth reach her in pieces. This meeting was not small. It was not ordinary. It was not a favor. It was about a stake large enough to shift rooms like this, large enough to make phones ring fast and voices change. She felt dizzy, not from pride, not from victory, but from how close she had been to being erased without anyone knowing what they were throwing away. She thought of her uncle's tired smile, the way he always said, "Keep things simple, keep your name clean." She thought of nights in her small room in Malira, counting steps instead of money because it felt easier. The room around her felt unreal now, like a stage after the lights change. Kama began apologizing, not loudly, not fully, but enough for people to hear. Hands reached out, awkward and late. Someone smiled too wide. Someone else avoided her eyes. Myrla listened without really listening. Her chest was still tight, but under it was something warmer, steadier. She did not feel powerful. She felt awake. She felt seen in a way that scared her a little. She realized how thin the line was between being invisible and being important, how nothing about her had changed except the truth catching up to her name. When she finally stepped back, the room made space without being asked. She held her folder, lighter now, almost empty of fear. Outside, the light through the glass felt softer. She took one deep breath and let it out slowly, a small laugh escaping before she could stop it. Not from joy, not from pain, but from the strange kindness of realizing that the world had almost crushed her without knowing who she was, and that this time, just this once, it had stopped in time. Kama's voice fell low, almost careful, like she was afraid of it breaking again. Words of apology moved around the room, not strong, not clear, but repeated enough to be heard. People who had looked away earlier now stepped closer. Hands reached out, one after another, warm palms, quick smiles that came too fast. Someone said Myrla's name like it mattered. Someone laughed softly, trying to smooth the moment. Myrla stood there listening, her heart still pounding hard, her legs still weak, but something inside her had settled. She nodded when she needed to. She said thank you when it felt polite. She did not explain herself. She did not tell them how close she had been to crying, how the floor had almost swallowed her. She could still feel the heat on her face, still hear the echo of laughter from before, but it no longer owned her. She felt steady in a new way, like standing after a long fall and realizing your bones are still strong. The folder in her hands felt lighter now, like it was no longer holding fear, only paper. She stayed just long enough to breathe. Then she turned toward the exit without making a scene. No one stopped her. Outside, the sunlight in Sorvi washed over her face, bright and warm, and she laughed under her breath, a small sound that surprised her. The street moved like it always did, people talking, cars passing, life not knowing what had just happened inside that glass building. Myrla stood there for a moment, letting the light settle on her skin, feeling awe rise slowly, followed by relief, so deep it almost hurt. She thought of early mornings, of tired nights, of all the times she had doubted herself in quiet rooms. She felt a soft pride grow in her chest, not loud, not sharp, just real. She had not won by shouting. She had not been saved by luck or by someone speaking for her. The truth had simply arrived, calm and heavy, and everything else had moved out of its way. Myrla took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and stepped forward into the noise of the city, carrying a different weight inside her now, one that felt less like fear and more like strength.